Nate McKelly didn't hear the rats at first on account of the rain. The 7-year-old lay huddled in his bed, tightly clutching the covers. With wide, watery eyes, he stared up at the ceiling, alert for the slightest leak or the sickening crash of a large branch leaking through the roof. Nate hated this crap-hole hick town and their newest home, as well as the oh joy, good old wonderful Humboldt County locale. Tweakers, junkies abound, as well as potheads, although you don't have to worry about one of the potheads robbing you the way they do with those tweakers. Unlike San Diego, where the McKellys heralded from, there were no amusement parks and places of interest for those with rather short attention spans and boundless energy such as Nate. The Bayshore Mall in Uniontown was ugly, small, pathetic, while the 20-plus stores here were tiny, mind-numbingly boring, and often occupied by long-winded and annoying people. The only plus side of this whole Humboldt region, aside from the nice Victorian-era architecture, was that it was located within the heart of the majestic redwood forest. Trouble was, you had to be basically a millionaire to live in one of those showy museum houses, and when you belonged to a slightly lower income bracket, such as the McKellys, you were stuck in either slummy old Uniontown or worse, crappy old Curtisville. And even if they were able to sell off this enormous English-style ranch house that they had just inherited from Grandma due to the expenses of numerous renovations, they still wouldn't have had enough to move to a more decent, kid-friendly locale. And what was the point of enjoying the forest scenery when the extended periods of sun and warmth were so few and far between? There was either a lot of fog or a lot of rain, or in this case, a lot of fog accompanied by heavy monsoon showers, lightning, thunder, and sometimes marble-sized hail and nearly hurricane-force winds. Nate sighed, wishing his dad had walked away from this massive money pit and stayed in San Diego rather than take this new job transfer as a customer engineer for the Control Data Corporation, where he now took care of a large room full of noisy, antiquated computers and peripheral equipment. He looked helplessly around his dark room that he held carefully in an organized assembly of various belongings. Nate wrinkled his brow as a heavy lump formed in his throat. His two older brothers, Russell and Larry, adjusted well to the big move, already making new friends, on their way to becoming the top uber-cool jocks that all the popular kids aspired to be. Russell, with his skill in sports, as well as his display of athletic prowess on his beloved bike, as well as skateboard, while Larry, or Lars, earned the respect as well as envy via his musical talent in the local and already massively possible dark metal band Mauve Vagrant. Nate, on the other hand, rebelled the move with frequent temper tantrums, hunger strikes, and lengthy periods of simmering resentment. To add insult to injury, he was placed in special ed because he wouldn't sit still in a normal classroom setting, quote-unquote. Eventually, he left off most of his unpacking for the 3 months until his mother finally pitched a fit and told him that unless he did it himself, she was going to send his jerky brothers to do it all for him. So with his threat looming overhead, Nate got to work, sullenly unpacking one box at a time and slowly putting stuff away. When he finally finished hauling out the last box, he realized that he was missing a box full of his favorite comic, his patchwork duck plushie, and a security blanket. Great. It's bad enough I get stuck in the retardo class with all those losers in the mental cases, he thought. But then the stupid movers end up losing all my favorite stuff in the whole wide world. A thunderous gust of wind shook the side of the house, hurtling loose twigs and leaves against the casement window. The tow-haired small boy stared at it, holding his breath. Another bluster shortly followed, accompanied by the new clatter of debris against the small diamond lattice panes. Groaning loudly, Nate burrowed deeper beneath the covers. Another reason why he hated this stupid house. It was too close to the lousy woods. Too many towering trees that could topple over any minute, too many creepy sounds he couldn't quite identify, especially at night. Shrill voices whispered. Nate frowned, uncovering his head. His hands clenched the blanket so hard that his knuckles turned white. "Who's that?" he croaked out. His fingers trembled slightly. No one answered, only the whispering. He strained his ears. No, it wasn't whispering. It was more like squeaking, but not from something metal like a rusty hinge or a TV antenna. No, more like from something living. Nate listened hard, trying not to move and make noise. Rats, he decided. His lips were tightly pursed in a worried pout. Nate absolutely hated rats. They gave him the creeps, especially the big ones. Now he had another reason to hate the place, the scary, ugly neighbors living in the walls. He rose slowly up in bed, his eyes big and wide as they carefully traced the noise. They soon fixed on the plastered walls surrounding his closet. What the heck were they doing, he wondered, staring at that spot. Having a late-night party? The squeaking grew louder. Now there was scuffling and scrabbling and then humping like they were thumping like they were leaping off the support beams and landing heavily. My bad. Fighting, Nate finally muttered. Like they've all gone nuts or something. He swallowed hard. His attention was soon riveted on his closet door. The air around him was filled with the scratching of their scaly paws on the timbers and their incessant, high-pitched squealing. They're getting closer. Icy prickle of goosebumps spread rapidly over his legs and arms and down his back. He sat frozen, his eyes huge blue-green saucers filled with terror. He envisioned a heaving mass of greasy black fur oozing from the large chewed hole at the back of his closet. The whole pack clustering within the cramped space, heads raised with quivering whiskered snouts and bared yellow incisors, hungry eyes glinting redly as they searched the door for a weak spot. Suddenly, more than anything, he wanted to get out of this room. Tossing the blankets, he scrambled out of bed and raced for the welcoming crack of golden light coming from beneath the bedroom door. "Mom! Dad!" he yelled. The light winked out. Panicking, he threw open the door and ran full force into someone coming down the hall. The impact sent them both tumbling back and slamming onto the floor like sacks of potatoes. "Ma!" Nate wheezed. "Aw, dude, what the hell?" Russell sat up unsteadily, rubbing his head. Finally dragged himself to his feet and glowered down at his youngest sibling still sprawled out on the floor. "Okay, dumbass, what you gonna do this time?" "I didn't do nothing," Nate said through his wheezing. "Well, you must have done something," said Russell, hauling Nate up by his pajama front. "I go to use the bathroom for 10 minutes, and you come out like you're looking to set the room on fire." "I swear, Russ, I didn't do anything," Nate replied, addressing his fist. "It was the rats." "Rats? What rats?" Russell released his hold on Nate's PJs. "I don't see no damn rats." "No," Nate cried, gesturing wildly toward his room. "In my closet. They're breaking through the walls." "Pfft, you dreamed it all." "No, I didn't," Nate cried in outrage. "They're real, honest to God, killer rats, and they're coming to eat me, just like that Willard guy." "Will you pipe down?" Russell warned. "You want to wake up Mom and Dad?" "I don't care," Nate grumbled, folding his arms stubbornly. "As long as they come up here and check my closet for rats." "Look," Russell said sternly, "last time you got your closet checked, it was because you stayed up till midnight watching the Halloween Monster Marathon." What is that?" "Oh, yeah, well, that was just a regular nightmare," Nate replied. "The rat one's real." Russell frowned as he thought about Nate's nightmares. Usually they were about monsters, sci-fi horror stuff he saw on TV or at the movies. If it was about a real-life critter, it was an enormous hulking mutant like King Kong or Godzilla, or a prehistoric one, such as T-Rex or one of those velociraptors. Okay, he said finally. "I guess I believe about the rats. So you'll check my closet?" Russell shrugged. "Sure, I guess." Nate stared hard at him. "What do you mean, you guess?" "That's what I mean, sure, I guess." "You're still guessing whether I'm making this up?" Nate whined. "Look, damn it," Russell fumed. "You want me to check for rats or not?" "Sure, okay," Nate replied. "I have to go to the bathroom, though." He walked a few paces before turning back to Russell. "And don't you go touching my stuff while I'm gone." Russell rolled his eyes, unimpressed. "Yeah, whatever. Like I'm going to be touching your dorky, germy stuff." The moment Nate left, Russell thought about leaving just a note stating the closet was secure and rodentia-free, whatever that means, and then decided against it. Nate may be a gullible when it comes to ghosties and ghoulies, but he certainly wasn't stupid. "Rats my ass," Russell muttered as he stepped through the doorway to Nate's room. "It's bad enough I had to sleep through a raging hurricane without some pipsqueak coming to complaining about local wildlife." Switching on the light, he stared at the closet door. For some inexplicable reason, he didn't want to take another step forward. Finally, he said irritably, "Well, screw this!" Storming forward, he grabbed the knob, twisted it hard. With a slight squeak and rattle, the door swung forward. "Well, what do you know?" said Russell as he prodded the hangers of clothes and jumbled assortment of toys littering the floor. "Just a regular first-grade closet. Nothing scary about that. Well, unless you count those happy trolls and that Smurf doll." Damn Smurf doll. Suppressing a shudder at his sickening visual overload of saccharine cuteness, Russell shoved the clothes aside and jumped on the back wall with his fist. Then he stood motionless, listening for any noises signifying a verminous horde on the move. Excuse me. "Just as I suspected," Russell growled. "Nothing but a kitty nightmare." He glanced at the carpeted floor that was visible between the small piles of clutter. No signs of droppings or stolen titbits. As he stood there, rubbing his chin in thought, he felt a slight tug on his pajama sleeve. "Ye gods!" Russell exclaimed as he spun around. "Geez Louise, don't sneak up on me like that. You want to give me a cardiopulmonary infarction?" "Okay. Sorry, man," muttered Nate. He stared around Russell to stare at the back wall. "So did you find anything?" Russell shrugged a shoulder casually. "Didn't find a thing." "You sure?" Nate insisted. "Yeah, I'm sure." Russell sighed as he stepped back into the room, closing the door behind him. No rats or rat holes. Zero. Zip. Zilch. Nada. Nothing. Nate was utterly dumbfounded. "But I heard them. I was wide awake." Russell shrugged again. "Well, he must have quit fighting and holed up someplace else then." Hopefully in Lars's basement bachelor pad, he thought ruthlessly. He was still pretty steamed at Larry for sneaking that perch into his pillow last month. What? Turning, he started walking back toward the hallway. "But Russ," Nate exclaimed as he tugged at his brother's arm, "what if they come back?" Russell paused with one foot across the threshold. "Look, if it happens again," he said reasonably, "then go pile some furniture in front of the door like that kid did in Cujo." Pulling himself free of Nate's grasp, he continued down the hall. "Russ," Nate asked cautiously. "What? Can I sleep in your—" "No." Russell cut him off as he trudged in the room, shutting the door behind him. Sighing wearily, Russell flopped into bed, folding his arms beneath the pillow. Shutting his eyes, he tried to catch up on some much-needed Z's, but try as he might, he couldn't quite concentrate. He couldn't stop the nagging feeling persisting in the back of his mind. Not about the rats that Nate claimed to have heard, but about the closet itself. After what seemed like an hour of trying to contort itself into all sort of yoga positions, trying to find some sort of comfortable resting place, Russell finally gave up. "Man, this thing's driving me nuts," he thought as he glowered up at the ceiling. "I took care of Nate's rat problems, why can't I just go to sleep already and not care anymore?" Furrowing his brow, he then rolled over and buried his face into his pillow. "You remember they were there when they opened the door, but not there when you checked the floor." "Now I know." Propping himself on his elbows, he stared at the door. Then he got up and opened it, wondering if Nate was still up. He was. Russell looked at Nate, dusting off his hands, and then at the various furniture that was now piled up in front of the closet door. Hey, Nate," said Russ finally. "Yep, what do you want?" Nate gave him a quizzical look. "You wouldn't happen to have one of those troll dolls in there?" What? Nate gawked at him. "Oh, maybe a Smurf doll?" Russell continued, feeling rather stupid. "Dude!" Nate screwed up his face in utter disgust. "I hate those freaky, creepy things." "Yeah, well, you know—" Russell hesitated. "I thought I saw some—" "Well, you must have been mistaken," Nate continued irritably. "Or your head ain't working right. I always hated those gosh darn toys. Seriously, those things are freaky as hell." Russell was about to insist that he didn't imagine anything and that he really did see those inhumanoid things, but then the resulting argument would probably take all night. "Okay," he sighed, turning to walk out the door. "Guess you're right, then. Good night." Well, that clears that up, then. As he stepped up back in the hall, he thought he heard a soft sound coming from the vicinity of the closet. A sound almost like a whispering voice, like one of those god-awful baby dolls would make, or maybe even a rat. "Please, let us out, please. We'll be good, we promise." "What?" Russell sputtered. He glanced back at Nate. "You say something?" Nate gave him a weird look. "Uh-huh. Oh, okay," said Russell numbly and resumed walking again. He could still feel Nate staring at him as he disappeared down the hall. Afterwards, he lay awake with the light on, watching his bedroom door for a long time. Then he put a baseball bat by his pillow, and at last he fell asleep.